Give it to your
Okay, we're
chair.
going to get started. Welcome to the IMU Board of Trustees of the Electric, Water, and Communications meeting, December 12th. Jackie, would you take roll call, please?
Present.
White? Present. Smith? Present. Raska?
Yes.
Boyce?
Yes.
At this point, I would welcome anybody for a public comment to step to the podium with your name and address. Share your thoughts. See anyone in the crowd tonight, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. Any conversation or questions around the approval of claims?
Not for me.
Okay. How about the financials report? I understand Doug's here to talk to us about these tonight.
Thank you, Madam Chair and trustees. So, and we still do that for the city council. So it'll make me make some changes on what I do to kind of prove some of this stuff, which probably won't be very easy to do. And I understand that you all have approved this form that we're using. And so maybe just a few comments about it. Chris, we've had a couple sessions where we talked about this and that on this report. Obviously, the accrual would be more accurate on cash basis, because you can imagine some funny things could happen there. One of the things that I believe is, and I'm looking at the fund balances, I always say that, you know, the fund balances are your foundation. That's, to me, the foundation of if it's water, or if it's electric, or fiber, or whatever the case might be. The interesting about all this is all your assets are really what I call revenue producing assets, you know, electric or water, or whatever the case might be. I know that Chris in the back has some, what I call footnotes, but they're notes. And one of the things that I really think is important too is, for example, on the first page, which is water utility, get an A1 rating, you need to have at least, what is it, 110 to 120 days of cash balances. This one shows 240. So, you know, you're well beyond the 110. But what's really important, and I spent some days as a county supervisor, and we built that building on the square there. And what was really important about that is I understood about we got to have adequate fund balances, because that gave us a super rating for our interest rate, which is, in the county's position, is 20 years. You know, I don't know if you guys can go beyond 20 years when you borrow or not, but it has really a big impact. And then we got a little lucky over there where we sort of got this building started before interest rates have climbed. So probably makes us look good, and we didn't deserve to look good. And then, you know, there are the other funds. The biggest one would be the electrical fund, with all those power generating assets that you have. And I spent some time with the audit report, which I thought was a really good report. There's a lot of information in there. And today, Chris had to find something for me. I think it was on page 28 or whatever it was. We were talking about some debt, and I was trying to get a little explanation. But again, on your electric, it's got the days in there, 293. It's just, yeah. Only to be, the council outdid you, because I think a year ago, we had like 351 days or whatever it was. And this year it was less than that, but it would appear as if the IMU and the city, from that standpoint, are just super shape. Let's see. I don't know that I really have anything else. And you guys are so familiar with this, because you've been with it, you know about fiber, a lot of startup costs, and you're just really getting it going. And I think somebody would say the best is yet to be for fiber in this city. And probably have outdone yourself with the number of subscriptions. You know, when I was here before, I think maybe you were looking at 2,200 or 2,400 or whatever, and here you are at, what is it, 30, almost 3,200, so. I don't, other than that, I don't really have much to say at this point. I don't know if you'd have any questions, but we do have two experts here to answer those questions if you had any. And as Chris Longer pointed out to me, a lot of it's kind of explained in those notes, you know, on the back about why this happens or why that happens or what the point is. But that would be my report. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks. Christie, any additional comments on the finances?
No, I think everything is, like I said, as of a third of the way through, either kind of boringly consistent or, you know, in some cases where maybe we've exceeded those, are really just explained by seasonality and timing of our collections. So, you know, no concerns from my perspective. Everything looks like it's on pace and consistent with our budgetary expectations.
It's good.
Great. So,
If we can, real quick,
If you
sorry,
use mine and see.
on the claims report, on page 2, there was 14 foot of sewer pipe to the city of Wetchier for $4,032. What was that inclusive of? Just
We bought some, I'll turn that over to, we bought some old supplies from Wetchier, saved quite a bit of money. Lou,
Yeah, we, Watch Here had a couple projects that they thought they were gonna get done, so they had this 14-inch sewer main, and they had sitting there, and the monies weren't there, and they were trying to recoup some of their loss, so we were able to buy it for 25 cents on the dollar, so it was one of those deals where we helped them
okay,
out.
so it's not a. Is that then 14 inch instead of 14 foot of pipe?
It's 14-inch pipe that runs 14 foot long.
Okay, all right.
And we'll be working on second half when the weather breaks again on that.
Perfect. Nope, that just makes sense. I just thought we bought a single piece of pipe for.
No.
okay. How about minutes from the last meeting? Any questions or comments, concerns? If not, I would take a first and second motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? It says roll call. That's
Oh, I'm
just
sorry.
done. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. All right. Moving on to the electric utility action items. We have the turbine 8 control replacement discussion.
Yep, I've got Jared with P&E here. He can walk you through the questions that from those bids.
Yeah, so we received, interest from 4 contractors, 3 of which visited Indianola, and we ended up receiving bids from 2, Petrotech and, HPI. Both bids were a little bit under my estimate and were within $1,200 of each other. Which is kind of surprising, but,
How often does that really happen? Almost never.
Almost never, yeah. So after reviewing the bids pretty carefully with Mike, we decided that it was in the best interest of the project to award the bid to Petrotech for 2 reasons. The first is that they replaced the controls on turbine 7 about 5 years ago with a pretty similar system. So it's from a training and personnel familiarity standpoint, it's better to have 1 system than 2. The other is that Petrotech does provide free 24/7 technical support for the life of the project or for the life of the system. The other bid does charge after a year. So we felt that was more than enough to justify the additional cost.
We were happy with the work they did previously.
Yep, we're happy with that, and Jared sent out some for some references to verify, and there was one up in Michigan right now, and everything had gone good. In fact, they're back in doing another project for them, that same utility. Did you ever hear anything back from HPI? HPI, we didn't hear any back from the reference. The Petra Tech talked like no big deal on the plan. You know, lead times to get materials and that, we're far enough ahead that they can get everything ordered and we should be able to get material in time to be able to make the project successful.
This time I would open it up to public comment. If there's anybody that would have a question for the project manager, step over to the point. Name and address. No questions for the record from the public. Any other question or comment? Mike,
So
anything?
Mike, on page 700 and.
You did good.
He doesn't recognize how many pages there were.
There's definitely a lot of documentation that goes into it for sure.
So that was one of the questions I had. You guys have probably reviewed that with the attorneys. Anything that stood out?
We did, before we sent the bids out, we sent our stuff out to the attorneys to review and everything was in line.
Perfect. Okay. Close the public hearing. I need a first and second motion to approve the resolution adopting the plan, specs, form of contract, and estimate of cost for turbine 8 control replacement project.
So move.
Now I need a roll call.
Yes. Board Member Voigt,
Yes.
Cellgrave,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Smith, Raska.
Yes.
Motion. And I need a first and second motion on the resolution making award of construction contract for the turbine 8 control plate replacement project to, is it Petra Tech?
Petro Tech.
Petro.
Yep.
Any questions or conversations regarding that?
So moved.
Jackie would take roll call.
Board Member Cellgrave,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Raska,
Yes.
Voigt.
Motion approved. And then on to item B.
To get there.
Chris, do you want to speak to any of this? I need a first and second motion on the resolution approving a marketing agent agreement between Indianola Municipal Utilities and the Municipal Energy of Nebraska. Any comment or discussion on that?
Yeah, this is an agreement, it has been a long-term agreement, it changes minorly every once in a while and it's updated. And that's what you see before, you today, is just kind of a annual update. And it has been reviewed by our attorneys without any issue with that. What the agreement, is or is marketing is our excess capacity out of our turbines. They mean directly contracts for 15 megawatts and we get paid capacity payments for them. But we have the ability to produce more than 15, total of 37 or thereabouts, changes with capacity tests. Mean takes that with some excess capacity from its other members and markets that, and we're often able to utilize that capacity out on the open market. So what they're doing there, you know, ultimately it saves us from having to make those contacts ourselves. It is a group effort and a group rate, and quite often nobody necessarily wants to do the paperwork for a couple of megawatts here and there, but packaged together, it gets market interest and a little bit better rates. And so I recommend approving that agreement as it's worked well for us in the past.
Significant changes or material changes?
Nope. Just some material contract language got updated. It's functionally the same.
Did I see within it, we would review this again in 25? How often do we do this?
It's either a 2-year or a 3-year contract. I don't know what it has been historically, but yeah, it's a couple-year marketing agreement. I think 25 is the proposed expiration of this one.
Other questions or discussion?
I guess would be, we very infrequently do that.
It actually had a date in it.
Where we sell power back.
Oh, when we saw, I thought you meant when we renew the.
We very rarely
Yeah,
generate to sell out, I would say.
under this, I don't recall, yeah, definitely not frequent. It's much more, far more often mean, asking us to run for their capacity reasons. But they would also contact us if they sold it in the market and there was not just a, paper capacity need, but an actual capacity need, they would call on us to run very similarly.
Questions? Take a first and second motion.
So move.
Second.
Becky, would you take roll call, please?
Board Member Voigt,
Yes.
Selgrade,
Yes.
White. Yes. Smith,
Yes.
Rozga.
Yes.
Motion is approved. How about additional electric utility items?
I'll keep this short because I know we got a lot more to get through. Tree trimming going on around town. I've been doing a lot of that IUB maintenance, and then some great news. Chris Morris completed his apprenticeship program and is now a journeyman. So now we have 9 of our 10 linemen are journeyman now.
Sandy.
Awesome. The only one that's outstanding is just your new hire.
Is our new hire that we just hired here about 2 months ago. Yep.
How do you decide on the tree trimming, what trees get trimmed?
As part of our IUB inspection plan, we do divide the town up into 20% sections. So every 5 years we hit a section, and then if we happen to see an area that's getting bad within that 5 years, then we'll add it into it. But yeah, it's part of our rotation.
Thank you. Other questions for Mike? Water utility?
Yeah, we had well 12 pulled there. We discussed it before about the static level, that well dropping. They're taking the motor and pump down to check those out. We'll probably have to add a stage to that pump because the tentative plan right now is to drop it down 60 more feet to get more, what you call that static head over the top of the motor. It's gonna be televised Wednesday and scrubbed and cleaned, which is standard operating procedure. So we'll get, hopefully get everything ordered, and we've got it in the capital budget to take care of that. So we'll be hopefully not spending as much as what we have in there, but the casing didn't look good. They had to cut several sections of it out with a torch. It wouldn't even spin from the couplings. So we've got some issues there, bad ground or something we're gonna have to deal with. They make those 40-foot ground rods and stuff. We'll have to probably put some in on this well here. Never had happened to us before, but we've never had a well that we pulled that, they come in 21-foot sections and you spin them down with the rig and lower it down. It's a process. When they were lifting it up, they wouldn't spin apart. So they had to cut them off and lay them out like that. So we know we have casing to replace. We know we have a stage in the motor, or pump, that we're gonna have to add, and probably, maybe even a bigger motor, if we still wanna get that 1,400 gallon a minute. Now we're down to about 1,300 gallon a minute, so we're lost over 100, right at about 100 gallons a minute off that because of the situation we're in. Otherwise,
Did you say how far down it has to be, the pump has to be with the water over the top?
for the water over top, we drop it about 570 feet. We're down in the Jordan, which is 2,500 foot deep, but we've got it cased up and the water comes up to that level. And the Jordan constantly feeds in because of the porous rocks that it's in. And when we start the well up, it draws that water down. And it's drawing it down to the point where, it could burn up our pump and motor if we don't, be proactive with it. So
Does that have to do with our water levels?
it's just the water levels in the Jordan Aquifer that are dropping all the way up into Wisconsin, they say. And it's much shallower once you get up into the Minnesota, Wisconsin area and up into Canada. So it's not that big of an issue, but the farther south you get, we are close to being the farthest south utility into that aquifer because it's down quite a ways. But that water, it's good water. And we've been into it since 1955 with our first well. So you get up into the St. Bonaventure or the St. Lawrence aquifers, they're brackish. They're not good. Yes, the treatment costs go way up. So staying in the Jordan is definitely the plan that we have to keep with. So, but I'll let you know as we get it televised and stuff and get parts ordered stuff, when we can get that back in line. Otherwise, like Mike said, I'll make it short because we're.
I just have one more question though. With all of the news of the lack of rain and the moisture in the ground and the water, what's our threshold of saying we have a state of, we need to do something?
For us, there are several Jordan wells that are in the state of Iowa, and not all of them are experiencing the trouble that we are. But us, Pleasantville, Knoxville, West Des Moines,
Territory.
yeah, Ankeny and stuff like that, where they're down in there, and it's just, it is what it is. It's they knew the geological report that the DNR did that anticipated the loss, but it's just a little bit more than what they anticipated as far as the static levels. We still got a lot, we can drop it, but it's just the cost to pull it back up, is there. Bigger problem.
Thank you.
So will we blow our budget then because of the casing?
No,
and maybe
no, we
haven't-
won't. I had to put it in there with the anticipation that worst case scenario. And as they were pulling it and it wasn't working out for us, what do you do? So.
Yep, thanks, Lou.
Okay, thanks, Lou. Communication utility items, Kurt?
Yeah, I'll be the same. I can keep it short. We're pretty much business as usual, so just still facing weather, but still getting drops in the ground, so that's good. We get a few more weeks here of not having put temps out yet, so which is good. The only other thing that we'll be doing here next this week, and actually last week, is we're doing our annual customer param equipment updates, just software firmware upgrades to keep everything up to speed. Once we get past the holiday season into January, we'll be updating our OLTs, the CO, and that'll get us all up to date for the year.
Impact to
So.
customers, or that's all internal?
ONTs will do a reboot, but we do it overnight. We'll push that off at about 3 a.m. So it just a couple of minutes it takes them to reboot is all it does, so.
Okay, thank you. Combined electric, water, and communication items. We're going to talk about utility accounts to be written up, or should you have talk through that?
Nothing really new, very similar to last month. Don't really have too much to add.
Any questions on the resolution that Alicia shared? Okay. I need a first and second motion to approve those accounts to be written off and to use a customary collection method, including submission to the state offset program, and to charge any applicable collection. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. 23-24 budget. Capital project work. Chris, are you kicking us off, I assume?
Yes. All right, perfect. So, just wanted to start off and talk a little bit about, our capital budget and kind of just remind everybody, this is one of our core missions. I won't say it's the most important thing that we do, but it's very important. We've got a lot of infrastructure and infrastructure-related spending. And I think that part of that core mission, that is reflected in our strategic plan on how we take care of that, or, really falls under the asset management umbrella. And so I have this graph here, I ran across that. And I think it summarizes well, or there's a lot of concepts in here that are important to consider. The blue line sweeping up is maintenance costs. The purple line coming down are reliability costs, and some of those are indirect. And ultimately, the two graphs of total cost and reliability are opposing. We try to optimize, or what our goal is for every product and every life cycle. That optimal cost isn't spending the most amount on maintenance. It's also not spending no amount on maintenance. There's an ideal amount that balances the increased reliability that our system will get, and that is offset by some of the spending. So, you know, that total cost curve, represented by the two, you know, our reliability costs coming down from, you know, and that comes across the board. That's not just our cost, but, you know, the customer cost if we have a failure, a water main break or a main outage, compared with our, maintenance cost. So it's kind of a good reminder that, you know, we're not trying to maintain or over-maintain, everything perfectly. There's an optimal balance, but it is an important, feature or function that we do maintain our equipment and see a semblance of reliability. So in the report, or, the next 3 pages I'll hand over to the individual department heads to talk a little bit about. First, we'll talk about electric, and just, I think, each one of those departments or functions, the philosophy is a little different in each. You know, again, I commend those, department heads for their work. I think, very happy with, how they've turned out and what they've done. I think you'll see in our electric philosophy or what we're trying to accomplish in the electric CIP, is a measure of consistency. And that consistency, in spending, we do have a couple of years at the front where we're purchasing some equipment, they're a little higher, but they're, succeeding down to, you know, a $1.8 million range. That's kind of our target, and represents a good amount of maintenance that accomplishes a lot of goals. What we're doing there with that consistency is not putting any rate pressure in the future years. You know, we have a good, maintained system, and we're not increasing that maintenance. We're kind of doing a rateable amount of, maintenance and capital improvements there. Those won't be increasing in future years, so, you know, other than our normal inflationary costs, we won't have any rate pressure as the years go out. You know, so we're not building our maintenance program that's in and of itself requiring a rate increase. And I think that's, a great valuable, you know, item, and, you know, Mike's done a great job with that. Our water philosophy is a little different. We have scheduled improvements in there, and I think you'll see, as the years go out, we're increasing the amount of spending there. And I think, the trustees are well aware, there are a lot of infrastructure needs on the water. So rather than the consistency we see in the electric, CIP, the water does have some progressive and increasing, infrastructure spending, and that's, you know, commensurate with some of those important infrastructure items that we need to get done. And finally, the last, department is the fiber. And rather than that consistency or, you know, an increased amount of infrastructure, technology is really driving, the wants and needs on the fiber side. We have a couple of proposed improvements. We have some maintenance items. And so really the timing and improvement of all those are really led by technology and our, city's capacity. I'll first hand that over to Mike, and he'll talk about, the electric details, and if there's any other questions, we'll, turn them at that point.
So we'll start at the top with vehicles on the capital budget. Capitals, right now, we're currently,
Do you see that, Doug?
No.
It's a bit of, yeah, there's some extra copies.
Thank you.
got a little over $1 million in there this year. Like I say, that's buying a lot of equipment and things that we're trying to upgrade to prepare ourselves, to move forward. One thing I will put in there that we're talking about, the board approved, us to go ahead and purchase or put the orders in for the two, 1-ton crew cab trucks, which one come in. One thing that we're looking at, to do is, right now the market's really good for used, bucket trucks. Kurt currently has a bucket truck that I used to use. It's a little bit big. And we're running a smaller bucket truck around town that does a lot of running. as far as we're trying to, I mean, it needs to carry the tools to do the underground stuff, but does it need a bucket on it? Probably not. So, we're looking at the possibility of outfitting maybe the second truck, buying it, putting a utility box on that. And then the other truck would then go to Kurt where we would still have access to it in an emergency situation. And we can take maybe advantage of, the larger truck making a little bit of money while the market's, up there right now.
How old is that truck?
28, the big one that Kurt has, 99, I think.
What's the life expectancy on something like that?
With the lead times right now, they're getting longer. You know, it's hard to tell because since I've been here, we've still got all of the new trucks that we've had since I've been here. Just because back 20-some years ago, we quit buying steel body trucks. We started buying fiberglass body trucks and they lasted longer. They looked a lot better and able to maintain them longer. So a little more upfront cost for that, but I think it's paid off.
So 20+ years.
20+
What you're
years.
saying.
Yeah. So some other vehicles coming, we don't have any out there for next year. The reason being is if some of this stuff, for whatever reason, we're still waiting to get it there, we may have to roll some of this money over. Our plans are to get it this year, but we took such a big chunk, took a year off from vehicles, and such, but then we roll into the next year, we got a vehicle, a skid loader, and then, a digger truck, 3,500. Out there right now, I think I mentioned now that's 7 years out to get one of those, built and made right now. I don't know how anybody ever figures that in. So that's not for a new one. That's to figure into, let's take the one we got, send it off, have it refurbished, and then get it back.
What's the timing or process of that? Are other people doing the same thing?
I've heard possibly some people are trying to do that, but I'm hopefully being this far out that we can maybe get our name in somewhere and see what the possibilities are to have that down. The biggest deal is we're gonna be, we have 2 trucks, it's just for the case that one's down, or if we got one holding a pole somewhere, when we have it down, we're gonna be down a truck. That's the only downside to it. And then replace the dump truck. When I say dump truck, ours aren't the big ones that you see on the city, ours are the smaller, size trucks that sit on smaller chassis. And then the same thing for a bucket truck. We've got some money set out there in the future. A lot of that may play out. We'll see what happens with the undergrounding. If the undergrounding moves forward faster, maybe we don't. We can push that out a little bit further too without having to replace one. So we'll keep tabs on that as we move forward. Turbine substation, specialized equipment. Major maintenance stays about where that's at pretty much year in, year out. And that's pretty much to take care of anything that goes wrong with those during the year. Just the day in, day out. The 69 kV relay, that's out there. That's actually to update our existing relays in our substation. It'll actually make it safer for guys to be in. They don't have to necessarily be inside the substation. If we have to close them manually, they can be outside of those, and so it's definitely an arc flash type safety issue there. The turbinate controls, which you approved tonight, of course. SCADA controls, I know that's hard to think. I know it seems like we just put them things in not very long ago, but by the time we get out to do that, it'll be 8-year-old system. Time to update the hardware, software, and get that done. So just some batteries.
Batteries, what type of batteries do we have out there? Are we updating to lithium or?
Yeah, we're getting the updated cell batteries, and we're putting them in our substation. We just did the west side sub this year. When we do them, it's the battery rack, and we're changing the chargers out at the same time. Because what we're told is it's the best thing to do at the time we need to make them work and last longer.
Going with lithium ion batteries, so that should give us a lot. What do we currently have, VRLA or lead acid?
Yeah, we get about 20 years. We've been getting 18, 20 years out of our batteries. We maintain them pretty good. Yep. It's a monthly maintenance where we're checking them out. But we're just kind of coming to the end of where we'll have all of them replaced through.
Amazing.
And then we move to customer pay projects. That can vary from year to year. It's 100,000, depends on how many projects come in. I think we're well over 100,000 this year, for the amount of projects, that we've done over the last few years. But
Can you
100,000.
describe what those are?
So that's when somebody comes in and says, hey, I wanna put in a development, or we wanna do this, or whatever project. And then we work up a installation cost to do that, and then they pay us to put that in, and it's kind of money in, money out.
They're offset.
They're offsetting, but it's an expenditure, so we put those in there in anticipation to getting that expenditure authority.
Transmission facilities, just another one of those. Unfortunately, that the costs continue to go up. I think we were at that $14,000 per pole. We're figuring $16,000 per pole on average to have those changed out. We've got 380 of those big poles on our system that we've got to take care of. So that gets us roughly about 9 poles a year, which kind of right in there where life expectancy of those poles should last, should kind of keep us in there. But part of our vegetation, how do we know? Transmission, we actually inspect that every year. So we go out and find any of those poles that are deteriorating where we need to change, and those are the ones we go after, change out first. Project 700, that's our overhead to underground projects, services going to a home. If somebody says, hey, I want to bring underground into my house, we'll put up to $700 into that project for them to go ahead and make that conversion ahead of time. Line construction, major line maintenance, this kind of all groups in with the electric underground conversion. It's kind of the downtown projects we have going on. These developments, when they go in, we don't charge 100% of that, because anything to bring that back around to make it on a dead end street or that thing, that's actually on us. So that's where that money goes towards to further extend those facilities. We do have some money set aside in there for K Street and Hillcrest.
What's going on in Hillcrest here?
Hillcrest is a for sure one, right?
As far as I know right now, Hillcrest is moving, they're still moving forward, both projects.
K Street too? I thought it was just the street that was gonna go in.
On Hillcrest.
No, on K Street.
K Street, I don't have, we're waiting on the rest of the drawings and plans for K Street.
I don't know if that's been resolved entirely at this point. And we have talked to Chris about trying to get a study session with the city council to walk through that, so we'd all have a better understanding of what's there. So hopefully we'll have some more on that soon.
Refresh my memory on Hillcrest, Mike.
So Hillcrest is, they're gonna redo the road up there and put some curb and gutter and up on Hillcrest. So it'll go from 4th all the way out to 14th.
Going to a
This is
3-lane.
like the industrial park.
Going to a 3-lane. There'll be a turning lane out there, and yeah.
And I believe that's gonna be a 2-year project, I think at least, by the time they have to phase it in, get flow wise. But, hopefully, we have a whole lot to do right there. We've been definitely working with, Jerry, the engineer, trying to save our transmission poles so we don't have to remove any more. Streetlight, maintenance, repair type stuff. So we got $50,000 in there. We're doing about 200 lights a year with that. And you can see it drops down there here in a few years, because we only roughly have about 600 of those left in town to replace. So we're getting down there where they're at. We've got just shy of 1,800 streetlights we take care of in town, maintain. But right now we've got 9 of the smaller ones in the residential, just shy of 1,000 of those already up in the system.
So I was on the square this weekend in the evening, and the lights around the square look really nice. That was replaced, I assume, as part of the streetscape project.
They were.
But then once you get just outside of that, you can tell they're the older lights, more yellowish. When are those slated to be?
So we actually just talked about it again today, a little bit more about, what's that process, or what's that look like going forward. There's definitely some different avenues we can go down, but I do know it's one of those that we, especially those because they're the globe, they kind of throw light
It's more-
everywhere. They're
very
not more
noticeable down.
directional type of, yeah, so. But yeah, well, and speaking of that, Mike's, comment, we did move forward on the substation. We're getting closer to getting rid of those yellow ugly lights out there. We're gonna have all brand new LEDs in that sub by the end of the week, hopefully.
So, Mike, as those go, is our strategy then to replace those? Because I know it says you drive, you know, there'll be LED, sodium. And you,
Yep, so we're pretty much, what my main goal was when we started doing this is we went to the areas that are already underground that we're not even gonna come back and touch.
Oh.
So we hit those areas first, and I hit the main drags, kinda like 15th, Iowa, Kentucky, Kenwood, you know, some of those main drags that people travel, we hit those first, that's kinda where the phasing went. And now we're starting to get into more, areas kinda off of those main areas, but pretty much everything, because we've got mainly everything east of 65, 69 is underground. Almost all of that's done. There's a small area down at the Millard Addition on the southeast that is actually on our list here to do in the next 30 to 60 days to, when we get opportunities to go do that.
what's our, experience been as far as reliability on those? Has that
Been
been,
great. Knock on wood, you know, it's a Phillips, light that we went with. Back when that's not Phillips anymore. They've sold out a couple different times, but, when we first went with them, went to a conference in Minnesota for the, APPA, conference. And they had a seminar up there on lighting, and there's a suburb outside of Kansas City that spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on engineering on LED lights and where they go, and they pretty much turned around and handed us all that information of their study. And Phillips was one of them that had great reliability, and that's the route we went with. And knock on wood, we've been lucky. I know there's been some out there that have had issues. Kind of got that purple light. You see some of those going on. It has something to do with the diode and how close, and it puts a film in there that adds the purple look to it. But knock on wood, we haven't had any of that issues. Building maintenance. This is where we've been doing a lot of that concrete work out there ourselves. We've got some more concrete we wanna do this year. Kind of some other projects coming up is we have a wooden fence between us and the detention pond and the church to the west of us. And that's been in long enough that there's some of those that are gonna need some attention. So that'll be the next project once that's all done. Computer software, that's all of our computers for anything in our generation, meter reading, in our trucks, in our training rooms, computers or anything like that. That's money to earmark all those for replacement. And that's all part of the process. We work with, IT, he's got a list of all of our computers, and we just know what computers are due when. Radio read meters, this has been a project that's been going on for years and will continue to go on for years. All of our electric meters are, except for, I think, one in town because of the type, but hopefully as part of the underground process downtown, we'll get it changed out and we won't have any left after that's all done. Yeah, we continue to go out and change those out. You know, they've got about a 10 to 15 year lifespan, and we do about 700 of those a year, which correlates out to the about 7,000 electric meters we have. Gets us to every 10 years we can change those meters out as part of that process. And then we escalated some of those just to every year, just a little bit, just to cover inflation costs for materials. I take any questions on capital?
So Mike, looking at the totals at the bottom, you're kind of like 2.5 million this year, ramp up a little bit more to 2.7 next year, and then you go back down between $500,000 and $600,000. You ramped up the underground project a little bit each year, but I guess I wondered if that should ramp up a little bit more to be even more consistent.
Yeah, no, Chris and I talked about that early. We're kind of being a little bit conservative, I guess, because we don't wanna say we're gonna spend this much money and not be able to get that much done per year. So, you know, we'll know more here in the next year or so, how much actually we're spending can get done a year, and then
Once
we
you
can
get the
adjust that as
equipment
we move
and
forward.
guys trained and, Okay.
Yeah, we made an initial kind of aggressive estimate about what we can get done. But the first year in the field will really kind of let us know if we have underestimated or overestimated our capabilities. And so we're waiting for that first year of feedback to kind of give some precision to that number.
So that may change your totals then in 24, 25 and beyond.
Good, later on in the future, yeah.
Those are just tentative for now.
Equipment is still on schedule for that?
4 rigs, yep, we're still supposed to get those in April.
I think we'd know by now if we were gonna have a problem.
Yeah, every time I talk to them or whatever, if they call, just checking in or whatever. Still on schedule.
They do here.
Yeah.
Chips.
No, we're still planning on, because we talked training again.
Thanks, Mike.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, you talked a little bit about some of the escalation. That really was the turbine controls are the 800,000. Take that 800,000 out, really after next year, we're at $1.9 million. Obviously, still an estimate at that point, but you know, that is kind of the consistent and at that 1.9 to 2 million range, we do cover the lifespan of our equipment. And so for the foreseeable future, that's a comfortable number. And, you know, Mike was able to schedule everything out and get some consistency around that. So I'm optimistic we can accomplish a lot of good as far as the electric goes. And, you know, like I said, not put any rate pressure on the future years, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, excuse me, on the water end here, if we start up at the top there, that 2018 Dodge that we have, we drive that 365 days a year. It's gonna have some serious miles on it. We hope to get a good trade-in. We hope to they have one that can even sell us. Right now, we put it in there hoping because vehicles are out. I was told that there are several vehicles on the lots, these car lots, and they don't have the chips to actually make the windows go up and down. The remote control windows and stuff like that, and people are still buying them. And the windows won't even go up and down until the chips come in and can't give them time. So that's kind of a crazy thing that we put it in there and hopefully to get that vehicle changed. And then the 16 vehicle, that's out 10 years away. If you notice there on, go down to the water main section there where we had 600,000 in that, we had to push back, drop that from 600,000 down to 300,000. If you look on the reestimate this year, because of our well issues. 11, you know, we had that surge. That's the well that's on Mid-American Energy. It has a volt protector and everything, huge, a very expensive one, went right through it. You know, we purchased our electricity from them and they have a fluctuation. They've come and did some tub work on that for us and got these new, better tubs that can handle the variation, is what I was told, a little bit better. Hopefully for us, that's the case. So that's the reason you have that disparity in between the 600,000 down to 300,000 on the reestimate, because we had to push our main projects back, with the exception of, you know, the streetscape one and stuff. So otherwise, you know, it's pretty self-explanatory there. We need to work on some filter upgrades, skate upgrades, which we've already done. Just got a $43,000 one put in. It's pretty much, that's our goal, is to upgrade and keep our plant running efficiently. And then so we got several $100,000 on the different controls. They're 23, 24, 25 years old and moving parts in the facility there. So we've got that money out several years to try to stay up on top. And as you can see there, for the water main section of this, if you go down to that, it's thousands of dollars, and there's a lot more. There are several different sections of town that we'll be adding on as years go. We get these clicked off. We've got 60, 70-year-old mains that are a lot of main breaks and not big enough, so that'll be a continuous process for the water utility.
We've talked a lot about the age of the plant, but these investments in maintenance, are we still confident that that will carry us forward?
Yes, yes, the plant, you know, we were pumping about a 1,400,000 gallons a day, and it's a 3.2 million gallon a day plant. So we're not even halfway there. We've been chipping and going up, being a bedroom community. We haven't had any big industry come in that uses a lot of water. And if we do, then we might have to go to a plan B. Several people, Ankeny, Altoona, West Des Moines, they have a contract and buy off of Des Moines Water Works. And we could possibly do that through Warren Water, because we actually out there by the Catholic Church, we cross over each other, you know, that kind of thing. So, that's a future. And they have asked us, they're doing a study on us helping them out. And that's still ongoing, on how much we can afford to give them and how much can they afford to give us type situation.
So are we participating in that study?
We've worked with them on it, and we've gave them our information from our engineers, and their engineers are now working on it.
So when would you expect to have a report out?
They, I went and talking to the manager, the Warren Water manager the other day. He said, they've experienced, a different thought process there, and they put it on the back burner, basically. They just sold several different customers to the city of Norwalk and stuff, and changed kind of that plain area, their thought pattern on that. So they've got a different way that they're processing what.
Does the city of Norwalk have their own, or do they draw from Des Moines?
What's that?
Does the city of Norwalk have their own water? Or
No, they've always bought from Des Moines. Indianola and Carlisle have independent wells, but about everyone else. Pleasantville. And Pleasantville has a big enough well that they actually help Knoxville or Marion County, rural water. Yeah, Knoxville does them too. But otherwise, you know, it's just that whole keeping an eye on things, and as the capitals numbers go out there, staying on top of it. I'll entertain any questions if you have any.
Other than hooking up to rural water, would additional capacity through another tower? and
Well, we
would
thought
that
about,
be
you know,
another option?
Maybe dropping another well down the Jordan. You know, there's Newton has several wells. They have more industry. There's towns that have more wells. Ankeny, the city of Ankeny, West Des Moines, and Waukees, think about it. They're taking and pumping off ours into their wells and making them like basically water towers. And then they're just pumping that treated water out and into the system. The recovery wells is what they are. That's an option too. A lot of your bedroom communities around the bigger facilities in many cities do that. They, instead of putting up towers, they pump off ours, fill up through wells, and then pump off their wells right into.
What do you mean they pump off hours? I'm not.
Nighttime.
Off
when you're-
hours.
Off hours.
Off hours.
Excuse me, off hours.
Not hours.
Okay.
hours.
So, yeah, it's a hot option, but I feel we're golden here for several years out, you know, with the capacity of ours, facility. And we do have room still, even with the solar farm going in, we left ourselves enough room there to expand, you know, so that's an option too. 'Cause at one point in time, the big thing, we were going to put a new tower and had a study done out at the activity center on the west side of town. The DNR changed the attitude of that, saying we want backup generation, which is why we have 600,000 and a couple years, 300,000, 300,000, and backup generation and fresher water, so it turns over. There's the town of Hartford, they put up that big tower because they thought they were going to expand and go crazy, and they didn't. So the water stayed stagnant in that tower, and there wasn't any chlorine residual. So basically what they had to do was sell it to Warren Water. Now Warren Water services them because they couldn't turn the water over. So that's one of the things the DNR wants, your water to be as safe and fresh. So
We like that too.
yeah.
So Chris, you kind of touched on this, but So on this one, we're ramping up, starting at about 1.2 and then ramping up over time to 1.8, 1.9.
Yep.
Which is what I expected, and the main increases in the water mains, to Lori's point. And I know this is only one component of the budget that we're looking at this point, but I assume that this assumes rate increases to be able to have funding for that.
For the next year, yeah, in order to accomplish that effectively, yeah, we are looking at a rate increase.
Each year or just one, or how?
Obviously, a lot changes here, and I think, you know, mostly in the near term, those construction-related inflationary costs, you know, we're hoping they slow up. And, if they do, you know, we're probably looking at some much smaller rate increases. This year, we are anticipating the need, and right now, kind of we're expecting to see a rate increase very similar to last year. And that's needed to accomplish a lot of these water main goals. You know, certainly in the out years, we have a combination of those, if those construction-related inflationary pressures go down, we'll either have the opportunity to do more water main upgrades, or, you know, if they continue, we might need to talk about larger rate increases. But right now, in those years, 3, 4, and 5, there may be an alternating need. There's probably some need for a rate increase if we start to alternate every other year. But after this year, we are expecting much smaller, you know, to have those rate increases, and then maybe do them every other year on top of that.
And all these water main points, you've coordinated the years and times with what the city's doing on street repairs?
Yes, we'll continue. There's some flexibility in ours too, because if they come up with an area that they have an issue with, similar to this West Boston where the sewer was giving them problems, we will adjust our area's schedule to meet theirs.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap, and, you know, we may need to go on a couple of projects on our own, but to the extent that we can organize some overlap, everyone's better off for it. So, yeah, you will see that there.
Thanks, Lou.
Yeah, I'll just start at the top as well, on the fiber side. Some of you that haven't been through this, maybe, the 2080 capital contribution, those are our improvements up at Cedar Falls for the TV, equipment. Right now, we've got that $75,000 still budgeted in there for the multicast upgrade. That seems like it could be about the same amount for the ABR upgrade if we end up going that direction. Also, taking a look out through the future years, a lot of that will depend on whether or not Waterloo comes on board on that 2080 agreement as well. If it does, I expect those numbers to drop. So, but for right now, we've left them alone with just the existing partners. So.
So you're getting down to 10,000 in the out years?
No, I really expect, but when we go to ABR, I don't expect to see near as many upgrades as we have in the past. So, yeah. So I think that'll look a little bit better. So that could even go lower with Waterloo involved. So we'll just have to see. Cedar Falls only plans about 18 months out. I've tried to get them to go a little bit farther than that, but that's really where they like to be. So it's tough to see too far out on that, unfortunately.
So Kurt, when
Only
would
go
you know
18
about
months.
Waterloo joining in?
What's that?
When would you know about Waterloo?
Yeah, I'm still hoping maybe this month. They were working on documents last I heard. I've got a 2080 meeting on the 20th, I think, scheduled for.
Potentially could be next year.
Yeah. I think if it happens, it will happen. We'll see documents in January probably. So, yeah.
Regularly sending them encouragement memes.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, everything sounded good last time we talked, so hopefully it's still going that way, so. Your IPTV equipment is, just equipment that goes in the customer prem house. This back in the, historically was set-top boxes, Mochas, remotes, things along those lines. So, we've kind of narrowed that number down a little bit as going down to the future again, and thinking that maybe eventually we won't have to, replace set-top boxes. It'll be more of a, app sort of solution, so. Over the air channels, that's our equipment sits in the Hillcrest Water Tower. We have a 2080 agreement with Pella. Pella splits costs with us. With this 60-40, we take 60, they take 40%. Right now, we bumped that up a little bit this year. We needed to get another receiver in there to be able to provide a couple different, more channels, for our customers. We just got that piece of equipment in here last week or so, so we'll be getting that in here probably after the first year. So the $40,000 in 23-24 jumped up again for that ABR cost. We will have some changes there we'll have to make, but again, all those costs will be split with Pella going forward. And then after that, that should just be maintenance cost and standard replacement stuff going out in the future years. Customer prem equipment is what we talked about here a few months ago. This is our replacement schedule for our giga centers. This is the 5-6 year time frame to get the gig spires in place. So that's taking that a little bit chunk at a time. So core network equipment, we actually dropped down a little bit to $60,000. This is the equipment that sits in the CO. Originally, when we took a look at this, we thought maybe some of that OTN equipment wouldn't be. We'd have to have more equipment than what we needed. Ended up we didn't need quite as much as we thought, so that number dropped just a little bit. Going forward, again, that's replacements for servers, battery backups, anything that sits in the CO. So, building improvements, got $15,000 in there this year, and actually I'll throw building improvements and vehicles together. Mike and Chris and I have been talking about locates. Right now, Mike's guys take care of our locates for us every year, and we do a transfer to him. With the new underground equipment coming in, Mike's concerned that maybe they're gonna be busy enough that they're not gonna be able to do that for us. So we've gone ahead and budgeted in a vehicle for another person that would be able to do locates for us. If we do that, then we're gonna do a little bit of remodeling on the shop. We just don't have enough room to squeeze another person in right now. So that's where those dollars are. Then looking forward on the building improvements, if we do get that person in, we would likely probably then take a look at maybe getting another tier 1, tier 2 person in as well, kind of seeing where sub counts go. If that happens, then we're probably going to take a look at doing a fairly major upgrade there to the building. We've got some room upstairs that we can maybe carve out another office or two, and we can maybe do some different stuff there in our main area that everyone's in. But we're just going to need a little bit more office space. So that's what that $80,000 is for. And then looking forward on down the line, it's probably just building maintenance at that time. That's an older building, so it's obviously going to need roofs and stuff like that down the road somewhere. So. Back to vehicles, 23, 24, we're just getting to that 5-6 year time span on the vehicles we bought. The good news is we bought them all new. The bad news is we bought them all new at the same time. So they're going to come back up due at the same time too. So I've got them budgeted in for 24, 25. That doesn't mean they can't push out to 25, 26, 26, 27. We'll just kind of see how things go. So
How old is the building? What year was it built?
I will, any ideas, guys? Old. As long as I can remember, it's been there.
'70s.
70s?
You said something about a roof replacement?
Yeah, I don't know where the last time was. We did have it inspected. It's been about 3 years ago. They were up there and I said everything looked fine now, so, but just lasts so long.
Is it a flat rubber roof?
I was gonna say, I'm not really seeing numbers that would line typically with what a flat roof replacement would be on this, so. But if we're doing good now, they say years wise, do we know how old?
Yeah, last time we talked to him, he said he'd be back in 3 years again to take another look at it. So I would expect him either, again, I don't exactly remember what it was, it'd be either probably this year or next year. We'll back to take a look again, so.
Yeah, right now, those are just maintenance dollars for the
Yeah, that's
existing
what I was-
roof. And, hopefully we'll have an idea when that roof replacement
Do
is
we know when it
eventual.
was installed?
So the roof was originally installed and it's just a steel roof and then they spray it.
Oh, okay.
It's a spray cover on it.
Okay, so it's not like a.
It's not rubber
Okay.
roof,
All right.
with rock, no.
General equipment, again, if we need to do locates on our own, we're gonna need a little bit of locating equipment, so that's where that $15,000 is. 25,000, looking down the road a little bit again too, depending on what we end up doing with drops and how that all goes, it may make sense to not contract that out anymore. If we do that, then we're probably gonna need a smaller plow to go along with our bigger ones for the little tight jobs.
The one we don't use?
We use it on occasion for those. So, we're gonna use it a lot when we get out in the county, trust me, so. Yeah, just plugging in some numbers there to take a look going forward, so. Outside plant improvements, this is probably where the biggest change to place, we went ahead and broke out that, fiber construction over to Pella down to its own line, so that 1572 dropped down to 475 for this year. That's, residential neighborhoods that we go into, put a new outside plant in. This also includes all your NOFA projects too, the North NOFA project and the South NOFA project. So, NOFA dollars are in there for, 2023, 24, and 25. So, beyond that, we'll just kind of have to take a look and see what, the city's doing and how fast it's expanding, so. Fiber drops were right on schedule this year, which was good to see. I have that slowly dropping down, in the future years as we do fewer of those. And again, as I said too, there may be a reason to buy equipment and do them ourselves, at which point that would drop down substantially. The 2022A fiber construction, you got the Pella line construction and the OTN equipment in there. I also dropped in the central office upgrade that we talked about a little bit, last meeting. If we don't end up doing that, that 252 can't come out. And also then in 23-24, the ABR hardware for 100 and the XGS PON rollout for 145. That's still kind of up in the air, and we're still talking about that, but I went ahead and plugged those numbers in just so you can see what they would look like if we went ahead and did it that way.
Questions for Kurt?
So Kurt, I know 22-23 is a little bit of an anomaly because of the Pella transport line. But then your numbers are declining fairly steadily, and just given technology turnover, that kind of surprises me.
Well, but I think a lot of this too is we're dropping off those fiber drops, things like that. Somewhere along in here, like I said, that central office upgrade, that 252 will take care of like some of that core network type numbers as well. So, yeah, I mean, really the customer prem equipment is the stuff that's really, you know, the big costs, and we've got those numbers plugged in, increasing every year, just because we assume it's gonna go up 3-4% every year.
So do you think your 25-26 starts to normalize then forward?
You know, it's tough to tell. I mean, that's the most difficult thing I guess with mine right now is we just don't have enough data yet, and it's still changing because we're still adding customers and everything else, and we haven't really got to a spot where, okay, this is gonna be, you know, a normal year is gonna be adding a couple hundred customers or 100 customers. You know, depending on how fast the city grows too.
Or how many more big projects we take on?
So,
Yeah, without any big expansions, you know, where our build out in town, the need for that is just gonna decrease time over time. And I think you'll see that, yeah, outside plant is a big driver in the drop. And then beyond that, you know, the a little more unpredictable, those fiber drops. You know, we're getting to a point where still pretty close to 50-50 when we get a new customer or a move. Half the time a drop exists. Eventually we'll cover the town enough where, you know, like Kurt said, we'll be down to a few enough to where we're gonna probably buy a piece of equipment. So, you know, it's probably not in this 5-year budget or shortly thereafter. You know, those drops are gonna decrease dramatically as we do self-installs.
and I'd also say too, a lot of stuff too on that core network equipment, the stuff that goes in the CO. I haven't gone back and actually looked at what we paid for our routers originally, but you know, the quotes I'm getting today for new stuff is probably comparable to what we still paid 3, 4, 5 years ago. So, you know, as technology gets better, sometimes those costs go down as well, so.
Other questions on the executive board?
So beyond this, yeah, if you have questions, certainly now's a good time to ask. And if you do have any feedback or comments as you take a look at this going forward, you know, now is a good time to raise those comments or concerns. We'll begin to integrate this into our operational budget. And you'll see this, well, obviously at our January meeting, we'll focus more operationally. So there'll still be an opportunity to make any comments about this, but we'll integrate these capital spending plans in those operational budgets. And I think Chris is gonna kind of head that up in January. You know, so certainly between now and then, if you think anything, you know, it's a good time to add that. We'll shortly after that January meeting, we'll be giving that information to the city. And as a reminder for Dom, you know, we'll publish an amount with our expected budget. And after it gets published, we can decrease our budgets, but we can't increase those. So You know, there's a last second change, we'll have to pass it and move that out to a budget amendment. Because once it's published, it can only go one direction.
So that conversation will happen on January 9th. That's our
The
operational
ninth, the
meeting.
right day?
Yeah,
That
the
sounds
ninth,
right.
I think we talked about kind of just presenting it broadly during the regular meeting, then have a study session following that to get into some more detail on that.
So this covered the three main utilities, but what about the service center? Anything with that building, like the conference room upgrades we've talked about?
Those costs are gonna be borne by the, you know, three main utilities. So nothing specifically funding related to that. There is conference room upgrades, you know, tables, chairs, the video equipment, that we should have in here shortly, the audio equipment that we should get in January. That's all covered in this year's budget.
The current year?
Yeah, the current year. So anything that comes out after that is really gonna be a little more less, or really less significant, tables and chairs. I mean, not cheap by any means, but, we can afford to buy a couple chairs at a time. We don't need to have a giant, you know, main, once we get the conference, table and those core chairs, we can upgrade over time.
What's the timeline on that being built out?
Yeah, camera equipment's in right now. We just got news today. Actually, Doug came in my office this afternoon and said audio equipment had been delayed again, so we're trying to figure out another option on the audio equipment, so, but we do have cameras in and things like that already, so we do have some of the equipment in-house, but, the audio stuff's hanging us up right now, so we're looking for a second alternate, idea, so.
Furniture, tables and chairs. There are long lead times on those.
We have a couple that we looked at that are kind of our plan B. The new equipment doesn't have, or the new table doesn't have a long lead times. But what we are looking at is trying to be opportunistic, you know, with some office equipment. I know downtown's closing up a lot of offices. We're hoping to get a table used. But that is, you know, it's here, it's not here today, it's there tomorrow, and then gonna be gone on Friday. So we'll get to a point where we've got the piece of the table, ordered that, or the table that we need to ordered. But we're looking to find a used piece of equipment, in the meantime, so, you know, that, we're not expecting that to
So
be.
keep your ears open is what he's saying.
Yeah, if you're.
I got a deal for you.
See something that looks good, let me know, we're in the market.
I just can't help but think that there wouldn't be some things pretty readily available with all the buildings downtown kind of reshifting and
Yeah, I would.
trying to figure
Aren't there
out.
places that actually specialize in that kind
Chris
of?
has been in touch with several, and we've
Okay.
talked about that, but
Yep.
do you know any of the real estate people, those companies, that might be another way to reach out?
Yep, and, you know, like I said, lots of office equipment, the piece de resistance, that conference room table, a little more sporadic, but, we're trying for that, and our plan B is a new table.
Thank you. Are there other combined electric, water, and communication items? Other items?
I got a, mean board of directors meeting, committee meeting for the finance committee on Wednesday. We'll talk a little bit more about budget and, a little bit of the future plannings, what natural gas may mean, items like that. Beyond that, yeah, we're really focused on budget.
Chris, has Mean had any conversations when you guys are all together? And I know we've talked about it a little years, but, I mean, there was just a situation where this electric utility got one of its, substations shot out. And, I mean, we live in a goofy world today. I guess we need to have some discussions, I think, also about just security and plans and, trying to put things in place to prohibit that from happening to us.
Yeah, I mean, the long and short, I won't go into a lot of the security protocols. But the long and short is, for for most of the town, we do have redundancies in our substations. So if we were victim to attack, you know, there would only be localized concern that we'd be able to largely feed the town without interruption. You know, in the middle of July, you know, it's gonna be a little bit tougher a pull, but, you know, certainly Mike and I have discussed that, the electric utilities, aware from that. I think there's certainly some security improvements we can make.
Well, and it's not just electric. I mean, it's the water and the fiber aspect of it too. I mean, if our communications went down, you know, from a city perspective, that would really suck also. So,
We've talked, it's probably not just city, it's probably across the country.
well, and that's why I phrased it in form of a mean conversation. I don't know if there's things we can learn from each other or help each other with. Cause I would guess that all these communities would have similar concerns. So, anyway, I just wanted to,
It certainly is an opportunity for a little learning from the community, or from the various communities. Mean tends to be a little bit on the smaller side, so probably not as a group the largest security risks. And so, you know, they're certainly aware of that, and they certainly play in those MISO markets and the SPP, and they know improvements and protocols that are available. You know, it's for a lot of towns and really us included, it's a cost versus benefit discussion.
well, I even wonder if we shouldn't have conversations with our local police. And maybe we are, maybe we have, and I just don't know it, or we don't know it. But I would think that we would wanna, you know, have something like that and have some protocols and different things in place.
Yeah,
Part
and
of our
certainly,
business continuity plan. That
Yeah.
could be very easily a good conversation in that forum. Okay, other topics? Thanks for everybody hanging in there for our long conversation tonight. I use a first and second motion to go into closed session in accordance with Iowa Code Section 388.9(1) to discuss marketing and pricing strategies and proprietary information of the telecommunications division whose competitive position will be harmed by public disclosure that is not required of potential or actual competitors, and no public purpose is served by such disclosure.
Question. I don't know if I've ever seen before having item B. So that's a closed agenda discussion topic, am I
Partly
correct?
because we're going to talk about it and then come out and vote on it.
Okay.
yeah, that will come back to, usually we kind of just close after this. In this one, we'll have the closed session, we'll come to closed session, make that vote, and then adjourn after that.
Jackie, will you please take roll call?
Board Member Smith?
Yes.
Rosca?
Yes. Yes.
Grade?
White. Yes.
Motion approved. Thanks, everybody. Merry Christmas.
Thanks.
Okay, I need to have a first and second motion to approve the Cisco equipment purchase for the communications department at $177,116.96.
So moved.
Second.
Two action items.
We're gonna do them one at a time. Second one was CJ Nat at $25,940.72. So we can do them both together.
You're doing it together.
So moved.
Second. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then I need anything else before we adjourn? Our next meeting is the 9th of January, so. I'll take your first and second motion.
Also move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for the tree stump.
Absolutely, there's
Yeah.
more
Tell
coming.
Cassie